Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about 3 genius marriage life hacks. My guest, Rivka, felt like she'd married the wrong man and that she and her husband just couldn't connect. She constantly felt criticized and defensive. After 36 years of marriage, she felt like she was just going through the motions, but not feeling loved like she always wanted to be. But she started a practice that changed her experience completely. Her husband is no longer critical, and he tells her he has the wife of his dreams, and she has the husband of her dreams. How did she do it? Well, she's going to tell us. Then I'll be giving out the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award, which a counselor charged money to tell a struggling couple. Oof, wait till you hear this one. All that is coming up, but first I want to share these 3 genius marriage life hacks. You've been working really hard on your relationship, maybe, and at least it feels like hard work if it's draining and takes up so much time and energy. And the bad news is you may have been working on fixing the wrong things. The good news is that no matter how bad it seems now, it's not too late to save the relationship and get the fulfilling one you set out to have when you first fell in love. And that's true even if you're separated, even if there's been an affair, even if the divorce has already been started. Here's what you can do to restore the peace, the passion, and the connection you once shared. Number 1, duct tape. Not only does it hold the universe together, duct tape can also keep your relationship together if you put it over your mouth when you're wanting to tell your spouse how to improve. Whenever you're tempted to tell your spouse how to cut an onion or eat more leafy greens or ask the boss for a raise, duct tape is indicated. If your goal is connection and playfulness, consider trusting your partner to figure it out, even if he seems clueless. You might be wondering, well, what if I'm better at those things than he is? Or what's so bad about helping him improve by teaching him what I know? Well, the answer is right there in the question. Nobody wants to be improved. Trying to improve your husband creates distance and defensiveness, in my experience. And you probably don't feel all that good hearing yourself giving orders, like a 3rd grade teacher who says, go sit down, put that away. It's not attractive. It's not conducive to intimacy. Why should being efficient take precedence over choosing faith and having trust in your partner's ability? You wouldn't have picked your husband if you didn't think he was capable to begin with. Sure, you want to help him, but if you're anything like me, sometimes you're too helpful. Deciding to stop being so helpful to your partner can be like trying to stop thinking about elephants just because someone told you to stop thinking about elephants, especially pink elephants. Just stop thinking about them. So, you just pictured a pink elephant, didn't you? Didn't I just tell you not to think about elephants? I guess you're just a contrarian like me, like most mere mortals. Being too helpful can be a hard habit to break without these next 2 life hacks, which are something you can start doing right away. They will give you the reserves and the perspective you need to keep the duct tape on when you need it the most. Number 2 is naps. You think napping is only for babies? You're more likely to act like a baby when you're overtired, including overreacting to your partner's loud phone conversation or to the dishes being left in the living room again. The world just doesn't look right when you're depleted. So when your spouse is getting on your very last nerve, it could be, and it often is, that your energy account is simply overdrawn. Your level of tolerance is directly proportional to how much rest and relaxation you've had. You think your relationship problems are bigger than just sleep deprivation? Well, go lay down for an hour. Let's find out. When you're well rested and rejuvenated, you might appreciate that the loud phone conversation that had you gritting your teeth was him taking care of the health insurance, so you don't have to. And that the dishes are in the living room, because he made his famous chili for everyone while you were out. Number 3, coffee clutches. Relying on just one person for all your social and emotional needs is just not a good setup. That's why you need a knitting circle or poker buddies or a running club to save your marriage, to make it last. It takes more than one person to meet anyone's emotional needs. In my case, it takes 2 sisters, 3 best friends, and my husband to make me feel better on a bad day. You also need friends, possibly with coffee cups. You might explain to them how much better you are at cutting an onion than your husband is, for example. They might remind you to take a nap. You might also talk about how stressed you are at work or challenged by your kids' poor grades or your mom's forgetfulness. Sure, you can tell your spouse these things, but why not tell more than one person? We humans need several other humans to bear witness to our experiences. Your social community can help uphold your marriage by doing some of the witnessing. You'll feel nurtured instead of needy by the time you get home to your spouse, and that happy grin from all the knitting and poker and running and talking will not only make you more attractive, it will go a long way toward creating a good mood at home. Sure, you might still wish he'd clean up more or spend less or not indulge the kids so much. Maybe you'll still be frustrated at times because he's not listening or he's paying more attention to the cat than he is to you. But the more you use these 3 life hacks, the smaller those problems will seem. The more emotionally safe, well-rested, and supported you are, the happier your marriage will be. And unlike your partner's behavior, all of these hacks are well within your control. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. My guest Rivka felt like she'd married the wrong person and that she and her husband just couldn't connect, and she constantly felt criticized and defensive. After 36 years of marriage, she felt like she was just going through the motions, but not feeling loved like she always wanted to be. But she started a practice that changed her experience completely. Her husband is no longer critical, and he tells her he has the wife of his dreams, and she has the husband of her dreams. How did she do it? She's going to tell us. Rivka, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I am so thrilled to have you as my guest today.
Thank you so much, Laura. It is such an honor. There's not a day that goes by that I don't bless you for the changes in my relationship and my whole family, my 8 daughters and daughters-in-laws and their families. Thank you. My husband's your biggest fan. So thank you. And I just want to say that the ancient Jewish sages wrote that the greatest thing a person can accomplish in this world, which brings eternal reward, is to bring peace between a husband and wife. And I know of no one who's accomplished that like you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to hear. So, I want to get your whole story. You have an amazing, powerful story. I've heard it before, and I can't wait for everyone else to hear it. But start from the beginning. What were things like in the bad old days? What was going wrong?
But first of all, I wanted to say that no one on the outside would see anything amiss. We had 8 wonderful children. We didn't fight. We created a vibrant, loving home for our kids. My husband worked. I was a stay-at-home mom, but no one could see the loneliness and the lack of emotional connection that I felt, which were really tough on me. From my earliest memories, I had always wanted to be married, be someone's special person, to be loved and to love. And I was a big romantic. And I thought that was just something that was naturally going to happen. And I thought I'd be the best wife. I was going to be loving and warm and respectful. But I have to say, without skills, it was like saying I was going to be a great brain surgeon without any training. So anyway, I want to give you a little background because, how we ended up getting married, because it's probably a little different than what your typical story is that you hear. My husband and I both grew up in non-observant Jewish homes. So we had all the influence of, TV, movies, those kinds of values. And both of us we didn't know each other, but we both became Torah observant in our own ways in our 20s. And there's no such thing as casual dating in our community. You date to see if you want to get married, and that decision is usually made within a few weeks or months. Of course, there's no physical contact before marriage. So, a matchmaker fixed us up. Yes, think Fiddler on the Roof.
Yes.
You don't have to get married, but you go out to see if you want to get married. And he wanted to marry me after the second date. And I was confused because our conversation just seemed stilted, like I didn't really feel an emotional connection. But I did see wonderful qualities in my husband. He was disciplined, dedicated, he had integrity, he was strong, he was honest, enthusiastic, energetic. We shared the same values. We were on the same page spiritually. We wanted the same kind of home. We were both into healthy food. He didn't smoke. He wanted a wife who would stay home, which I was happy to do. And bring up the kids. And I thought, well, of course, naturally love and connection and affection would grow over time. I mean, that's what I was told. And I agreed to get married. So here it is, our wedding night. And knowing that he's a more rugged, outdoorsy type, I bought a beautiful nightgown in cotton, natural fiber, right? And I was searching for an emotional connection. I mean, something romantic, like we just got married, right? So having no idea of the intimacy skills, I asked him a leading question, hoping to elicit some compliments about me, about the nightgown, something sweep me off my feet. So I asked him, do you like the nightgown? And he said, he's an honest guy, right? That's one thing I liked about him. So he said, no, I like more slinky material.
Oh.
So I thought, okay, my first mistake. I could have made him happier if I had chosen a different material.
Oh.
And my husband's first mistake in giving me an honest answer.
Yeah.
So I had no clue how to stay on my paper and let him have his feelings without it crushing me from the get-go. And for the next 36 years, that was kind of the underlying feeling that I couldn't make him happy. And he sure wasn't interested in making me happy because he didn't seem like he had romantic bone in his body. His idea of romance was like a swat on the tush and calling me wifey doodle, which I hated. And I actually dragged him to a marriage counselor about that. Because I thought, if you know me, if you understand me, if you connect with me, you will not call me wifey doodle.
Right.
Anyway, which of course was horrible. After 6 weeks, we stopped because we were hating each other after focusing on what was problems for an hour a week. We just, anyway, I had this fear that I had married the wrong person and for the wrong reasons. I wanted to have a family, which thank God we did, but that we would never connect and have the love I was yearning for because we didn't go into marriage with it. So if you never had it and it wasn't happening, like, how are you going to get it? Right. And all the marriage books said, which I hate, get back the love which you had in the first place. Well, I didn't have love in the first place. So I was convinced that it just would never be. We were so different. Like he was an extrovert. I was an introvert. He was an optimist. I was what I called realist. He would call pessimist. He was a thinker. I was a feeler. He was an adventurer. I was a homebody. We'd go on trips in the car and hours of silence. Like if I did say something, he'd say I know you're speaking English, but I have no clue what you're saying. Would you finish your sentences? Or if he was telling me something, I would ask normal questions, like in a normal conversation, you ask questions about what the person's, relating. And he'd say, those questions are off topic. Like that information is not relevant to what I'm telling you. So I'm like I remember once I actually sat, this was after, I think like 35 years of marriage. I sat in the back of a car. I was being taken, I'm going from Muncie to Brooklyn at that point, and someone was giving me a ride. It was a young couple. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to sit and watch how you talk. I mean, this is like after 35 years of marriage. Like, how do couples relate? It was, and he wasn't around a lot, and he was working very hard. And our interactions were mostly around the kids and our religious commitments. So we had a life of like meaning and value, but we didn't have that deep connectedness as a couple that I really wanted. And so we had this communication problem. And on top of it, I had no clue what respect looks like to a man. So I would interrupt his conversations if I thought he wasn't giving directions with all the details, and maybe the person would miss it if he didn't tell this detail or that detail, or I'd dismiss his ideas as not being realistic. I'd remind him which exit to get off, where to park. Once I even told him how to cut the pie, and he gives me a look, and he said, I've done surgery. Like, I know how to cut a pie.
Oh.
And I'm embarrassed to say that sometimes he would be talking to a patient on the house phone, and I'm like overhearing his side of the conversation, and I'm like waving my hand to tell him some advice that I thought he might have forgotten about. I'm not a doctor. And like, and here I am like, okay, yeah, I know this. I can, and I mean, sometimes I really thought that how do you make it through medical school without me? Like,
right. I love this part. Rivka, I love this part of your story. It's just so relatable because I did the same thing. And so many of the women on our campus, we did the same thing. And I mean, your accountability is just so endearing because, yeah, you didn't even go to medical school, right? You're not a doctor. So, I mean, he is. But I mean, it's just such a temptation sometimes to interfere with our husbands' conversations to try to help them, right? It's just, totally. I mean, it's just part of being a mere mortal wife for some reason. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I did it this morning. I'm so glad I know about duct tape because, he didn't get his order of a protein powder from Amazon, which comes, like monthly. And like, he told me, he said, I really missed my protein powder, and right away before I said anything, because I was going to jump up with, well, did you call the company and tell that you haven't gotten it? I just like, And I could feel good. I could feel good about me. He's a very talented person. He could figure out how to get his protein powder.
He's a surgeon. He knows how to do things. Yeah. So you just decided to leave that on his paper, right? You didn't need to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I didn't have to fix it. I didn't have to do anything, no energy toward it. He didn't have to feel disrespected. I didn't have to clean it up. It was just like, it was great.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
But then, going back to the bad old days, like, if he mentioned something he didn't like house is messy, or I didn't get to the kids to bed on time, or my handling of the finances, which was a huge pain point for us. My failure, shame, not good enough button would get pushed, and I would defend myself, or I'd shut down and get resentful. Because of course it was his fault. If he only knew me and knew everything I was dealing with, he wouldn't be critical, right? And then he would say something to me like, you're like the ground crew, and a pilot appreciates the ground crew because they make his flight possible. And I'm thinking, ugh.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a ground crew. I want to fly with a pilot. Like, what are you talking about, ground crew? And like, I didn't feel like Goldie, in Fiddler on the Roof. Like, for 25 years, I've washed your clothes, cooked your meals, cleaned your house, given you children, milked the cow. I mean, I know he loves my homemade spelt challah because he told me that all the time, but I had no clue that he loved me.
Oh.
We tried a date night once after 9 years of marriage. It was a total flop. We never did it again. Didn't seem like we just didn't connect. We didn't enjoy spending time together. We go hiking, which was nice. I like that. As long as we were busy and active doing something, we were okay. We focused on the kids, and then he started saying, you never make time for me. Of course, I give him all the reasons why I couldn't make time for him. I was busy and the kids and everything.
Children,
and then
right?
Yeah. And he told me, when we're old, and you finally want a relationship with me, I'll tell you, it's too late. You blew it.
Oh, ouch.
I had no idea how to have a relationship, but we couldn't communicate and there was no emotional connection. I mean, I'm a feeling person and a romantic person. And like, there was like, I don't know, just wasn't happening. So, and he could talk with his best friend. He has two best friends and he could talk with them for hours. And, afterwards he'd be glowing. And I'm like, what's wrong here? Like, what? Maybe I've just married the wrong person. Like he would,
so scary.
I was always telling him, and I would tell him that. I'd say, you know what? You married the wrong person. You'll be happier with someone who kept the house better and kept the kids to sleep on time. And I even accused him of not being able to relate to me because he probably hated women since he had felt controlled and manipulated by his mother. And I actually begged him to get therapy around that.
How did he respond to that?
He heard it and he said, yeah, probably, he didn't, agree that he hated women, but he said maybe he should get some, do something around his mother. But anyway, he never did. And it doesn't matter today. It absolutely doesn't matter. I know he loves me and that's all that matters.
Right. But at the time you were probably thinking, like a lot of us did, like I sure did, that if he doesn't fix himself, like I'm never going to get what I want. And it's really scary. Right.
I was scared. Yeah.
I'm going to spend the rest of my life not feeling loved. Like I
100%. Yeah. So financially, there was huge pain around that. There was never enough. He always accused me of nickel and diming him to death. And once we went to couples weekend, and they said to bring a symbol of a stress in your marriage, and he brought a pocket with the bottom cut out.
Oh.
And of course, I defended and defended and defended. I didn't buy extravagant things. It's for the needs of the family. I took it on. I thought that I went to Debtors Anonymous for 1.5 years because I thought I wrote down everything I spent. And when I showed them my expenses, they said, well, this is not unreasonable, So I thought there was no way out of just having that be just a huge pain point. A lot of resentment was built up, a lot. Over a lot of things, which he had no clue, like births, babies, anniversaries. Like I never felt celebrated. Like he'd forget to tell me, congratulations, and we had a baby. Like just say, oh, I'm tired, and whatever. Like I could never, I just kept that. Well, more evidence. We're not connected. He doesn't understand me. And I once calculated how many hours I spent shut down in resentment over 36 years at like a few days a week. I came up with 86,400 hours, which actually comes to about 10 solid years of my life when I could have been enjoying my husband if I had had the skills. And instead, I was just shut down in misery and resentment.
Yeah, it sounds like you felt really stuck and you were trying. Yeah. I really hear these efforts, right? Going to Debtors Anonymous. You were, and the couples weekends and, suggesting the count, like you wanted to work on things. You wanted them to be better. And it sounds like you didn't know how, like nobody taught you, and the resources you were turning to, it wasn't giving you what you dreamed you could have.
Yeah. And he did also, I didn't acknowledge it. He was also in pain. And, later, he said to me, he said, the biggest pain point for me is that I could never make you happy. Mm-hmm. And looking back, I realized, how much he tried, but I felt like, I'm just not in sync and he's not doing it, the way I could be. Certainly wasn't receiving graciously what he did want to bring me. Like once he gave me a diamond choker, and like I choked because I hate chokers. And I'd been telling him, please take me to the jewelry store and let me show you what I like. And instead of being, receiving graciously, because I didn't know about that then, I was like, more evidence that we're not connected and he doesn't know me and he doesn't care.
Yeah. He doesn't care. Yeah.
He used to bring me flowers. Now he brings me flowers all the time. I mean, they're They're gorgeous.
Oh, those are beautiful roses. He brought you those?
Oh yeah. But there was a time when
same guy?
he was
What? It's the same guy we're talking about?
Same guy.
Yeah.
And he used to bring, at one point in our life, he did bring me flowers every, Friday afternoon, but he would come in like a half an hour before the Sabbath when I was like overwhelmed with getting everything done and all the kids and the cleaning and the cooking and everything. And he had me flowers. And I knew he gave flowers to all the secretaries. So it was no big deal that he just brought me a bunch also. And he would like put it down. And instead of saying, oh, thank you so much, I just don't have time to put it in a vase, which is what, I said to him, oh, you give me another task to do.
Yeah.
The truth is that I didn't want him to put the flowers in the vase because I knew he wouldn't arrange it the way I liked it arranged. But what came through to him was that, you blew it. And he actually told me he made a decision never to give me anything again. And I didn't realize my part in that. So I had actually read
for both of you.
Very painful. I had actually read The Surrendered Wife years before. And I identified with everything. I even showed it to my husband. He said, yeah, that's you. But when I saw the skills, I thought, oh, forget it. I'll never do this. I mean, self-care? No way. I have 8 kids. I don't take naps. They don't refresh me. If I happen to, conk out, I wake up worse than before. I don't like bubble baths and manicures. I don't have money for massages. I like chocolate, but I can't go there because I'll eat the whole factory. So forget self-care. That was the end of self-care. Okay.
It just didn't seem possible. It didn't seem possible to you. I totally get it. Yeah. 8 kids right there. I'm tired. So I get it.
Relinquish control. I mean, that was way too scary. I mean, I might not get what I wanted. I mean, he wrote a book, which I edited, and I actually wrote the dedication to myself in the book. Because I thought he wouldn't sufficiently appreciate me. So if I'm going to relinquish control, and I'm not going to have what I want, right?
You wouldn't even get acknowledged in the beginning of the book if you didn't.
Oh gosh, I used to give him cards to give me. He never gave them to me, but I thought, well, this is what I want to hear, Anyway, and respect. I thought, I don't yell at him. I mean, he would walk out if I did raise my voice. So I kind of felt I was forced into being respectful, but I didn't realize all the control. I didn't realize I was being controlling, that all the shutdown and defense and, advice and was all disrespect. And receiving graciously, forget that one because, I just didn't know how to receive something graciously that I didn't like.
Yes.
Vulnerability, I didn't understand. And gratitude, I thought, I'm a nice person. I thank the cashiers at the grocery stores. I'm okay with that. Okay. So I thought, I put it on my shelf. And I didn't look at it again until my 36th wedding anniversary. So on our 36th wedding anniversary, I posted on the family WhatsApp, here's what your father did for our anniversary. Nothing.
Oh.
So unbeknownst to me at that time, one of my daughters had gotten into coach training, and I didn't know anything about coach training. I didn't know why. She didn't tell anybody what she was doing. She just quietly did it. So she calls me up and she says, Mommy, please don't post those things on the family WhatsApp. And I'm doing something now I think could really help you.
Oh, wow.
So that's the first I heard about coach training. And she said, I really think you should do this. And I'm at that point, I knew I needed something. I knew that it was just too miserable to live like this. And but I thought, no way, it's too expensive. We always have financial problems. It's not something that's ever going to happen. But then her husband, our son-in-law, talked to my husband about what it's like for him now. And he said, I've never experienced my wife being so present and loving as she is now. Well, my husband took out a loan.
Oh my
me to coach
gosh.
training.
You're
Yes.
kidding.
And that's when
Did he take the initiative, or did you say you wanted
I talked to him about it. And I said, this is, how much it was. And he had talked to my son-in-law about what the difference in their, in their marriage was.
Wow.
And he took out a loan.
Wow.
And then my life changed, thanks to you.
Oh, wow. So what did you start doing differently than what you had been doing?
Well, first of all, there were some amazing concepts that I didn't even realize. And you were a big part, in your coaching us in the very beginning was a big part of that. Like when I brought up my biggest fears about, like, there's no love to rekindle. Maybe I would never have it. Maybe I married the wrong person. Like, you told me that you've seen other people from different backgrounds, even in arranged marriages, come to love their spouses. And that gave me hope. Mm-hmm. And I once asked you, what do you do with all the painful things that happened in the past? And you said that you look at it like a beautiful stained glass vase that gets shattered, and you pick up the pieces and make a beautiful stained glass window that the light can shine through. That helped me so much, because it just helped me let go and look toward the future and not get stuck in the past. I mean, I've used that so many times, just that thought, just, there's no reason to hold on to it and create something new. I learned what it meant to stay on my paper and express my desires and relinquish control. And the funny thing is, if I do forget and I do get controlling, I start the ball rolling by getting controlling. My husband now, instead of picking up that ball, he pretends he's dialing you. He just pretends he's dialing, says, "Hi, Laura." She's doing it again. And we both have a good laugh. And
it's playful.
And that's
it's light. It's you're just full of fun and light. Yes. You don't get defensive.
No.
When he says that. Oh,
awesome. And the huge thing is that the skills broke through my codependency. I mean, I didn't even know that I was codependent, but I could finally let my husband have his feelings and not take it personally. I mean, that is huge. And first thing was that I think that I remember doing was slapping the duct tape on. And I realized how much, how controlling it was because of how many times I needed to slap the duct tape on every day. I always had my 2 cents to put into things. And I'm like,
right. I remember feeling like a mute myself, like, oh, I have nothing to say because it's all controlling. So yeah.
And then I made an amazing SFP, a spouse fulfilling prophecy, that we are so connected. And I started telling him, I love how connected we are. And lo and behold, what you focus on increases. And I started finding all the ways we were so connected. And I was also finally able to hear him. Like, I was able to hear his pain about the finances and stop defending myself. I mean, there was one time it's like, okay, I'm going to get through to this guy. I had both my sisters who were therapists and me, all three of us, talking to him about how, I was right. And look at all the mistakes he made. And like, we were at him for like an hour and like, it made no difference. Like, I needed to be able to hear him and say, wow, that must really be so painful and hard to, and then a miracle happened. Like, once I owned my part in it, I remember he told me, he said, okay, go to the bank and get $250 and take $200 for yourself for the week and 50, bring me 50. So I went grocery shopping. Ashley needed $225. So I took $25 of the 50 that I was supposed to give to him. And I put $25 on the table when I came home. And he said, is this for me? And I said, yeah. He said, there's only 25 here. I said, I know. I used the other 25 because there's stuff that I really, wanted to get. And I would love more.
Wow.
Never, ever, ever said anything like that before. just be okay with it. So he didn't say a word. And later I'm washing dishes and he comes over and he whispers in my ear, take out another 100 for yourself.
Oh,
I mean, that never happened before.
It does sound like a miracle. Beautiful.
And I started expressing my gratitude about everything, just, take out the garbage, whatever it was. Thank you so much. It really helped me. And he said, wow, after a few days of this, he's like, I didn't know you cared.
Wow. Was that hard to get yourself to do that? To start saying the thank yous?
No, actually, I just started noticing. It was very, very easy. None of this was hard. That was also the amazing thing. Like, it wasn't like working on the relationship. I mean, the hardest thing for me was just being like aware of what if I got into fear or what was going on in me so that I could deal with it and not blame him. But the relationship became delightful and amazing. Like, and I did start doing self-care. That was another huge thing for me. Like, I did everything with the intent of self-care. Like, even if I did it before, I added now, I'm doing this to make myself happy. Whether it was taking a walk or dancing, singing, listening to music, putting moisturizer on my feet. I bought myself a nice moisturizer and so I'm putting this on to make myself happy. And I did. Like, I just realized for the first time, I am responsible for my own happiness, and it's working. It's like I don't have to need huge amounts of money. I don't have to do things I don't like. I can do things that I like with the intent that this is what I'm doing to fill myself up.
And you still have 8 children, but somehow, right?
And they are. Yeah, they're grandchildren, and they're all married, right? Yeah, and we have loads of grandkids, thank God. But they are all happier in their marriages. I mean, every single one of them. It's like it's beyond, because you've affected just in our family alone almost 50 people. I mean, so. Wow. And another thing is that I was so less defensive and just able to hear him, able to say, you're right, instead of shooting down his thinking or shutting down myself. And I saw things modeled in coach training, like in such a gentle, beautiful way that it just kind of became part of me. And I love what you wrote in one of your books. You wrote, the more you admire your husband's magnificence and how everything about him is just as it should be, the more you feel God's presence. And that's what was happening. The resentment and the disappointment, the fears were released, and the love just started flowing. And the differences today, we enjoy being with each other.
Really?
This is, COVID was great. We just
COVID was great. Oh my gosh. Were you stuck together most of the time during COVID?
Yeah, it's wonderful. There's an ease and a trust and a love. It's like it's safe for both of us. We have humor. We laugh. He knows how to make me melt with his kisses. Like, talk about romance. Like, and he started giving me beautiful things. He went on a trip to Israel. And he came. My husband has 2 kibbutz. He just loves to do some, make fun. So he comes back and he opens up his suitcase and he says, "This is what I brought you." And he brought 10 bags of spelt flour. He brought 22 pounds of spelt flour back in his suitcase. And I was like, "Okay, great, wonderful." I received it graciously. And then later on, he came over.
Okay, all right.
And he handed me a box and he said, "And this." And I wear it all the time.
Oh,
it was a stunning necklace.
It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
And he just came back from a trip to New York, and he called from the store and he said, "You know what? I want to buy a new." We covered the challah on Friday night with like a pretty cover, and ours was getting a little raggedy. And on his own, I didn't say anything to go buy whatever. He said, "I want to get a new cover." And they're all different types and colors and sorts and whatever. And I didn't say, text me pictures and let me decide. I just said, "Great." whatever, whatever you think. And I relinquished control and trusted him. He brought the most exquisite, beautiful cover I've ever seen. Exactly me. Exactly, with purples and sparkles and
he gets you. He sees you.
He gets me, yeah. And he's always telling me how much he loves me and how beautiful I am. And now, like you started off, he said, he says, I have the wife of my dreams. And the bad old days, Laura, I would instruct him how to talk to me so he wouldn't trigger me, right? I'd say it like this and say it like that. And one time he said to me, I can't remember all the ways I'm supposed to talk to you.
Oh.
And now he knows exactly what to say. He'll say oh, I understand why you feel that way. I would too.
Oh.
And,
oh my gosh.
And honestly, we feel like newlyweds with a 40-year history. So it's all the better because
wow.
we know kind of what's ahead. It's already been done, but it's great. It's really great.
Amazing.
So,
I remember this one story too. It really stuck with me because I thought it was so cool that you had. I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but
no, fine.
I remember you used to, sometimes you would drop him off at a friend's house and then he would ask you to come pick him up later. Do you remember this story? And then,
no.
You don't? Okay.
No,
So
okay.
I'm telling your story. I hope I get it right. But
Okay.
and this is the thing, right? Sometimes we we'll tell stories and they'll stick with me or something. And then I know for me, I've forgotten some of my own stories too. But I remember, I think it was one time during coach training that he wanted you to come pick him up. And as you were dropping him off, you said, "Oh yeah, I can't." You just said, "I can't." It's not ringing a bell. I don't.
You know what? I think it's a little turned around. What happened was I was coming back from LA, and I had come in. We were living in Philadelphia then, and I don't like to take trains and buses and stuff, but somehow I had gotten from the airport. He was working downtown Philly at that point, and he said, "I'll pick you up." And I said, "Great." So I said, "I'll call you when I get to the train station," because I actually had taken a train from the airport to the train station. And I called him up and he said, "Okay, I'll be taking about 15 minutes. I'm on my bicycle." I'm like, "You're on your bicycle?" I've got suitcases and me. And what does that mean? You're going to pick me up? And then he said, "Well, you can just take another train closer to where we live or something." I was at that point, if I didn't have the skills, I don't know what I would have done. The skills, I said to myself, what do I want? I want to get home as quickly and as easily as I can. And I said, you know what? I'm going to call an Uber. And it's okay. And I called an Uber and I didn't, with the skills, I don't have to get controlling or crazy about him or blame him. I could just take care of myself, didn't impact our intimacy, and I could just be happy, even though sometimes it doesn't look exactly the way I think I wanted to look at that moment. But it's amazing. And there probably was a time when he would say, ring the bell that, yeah, I could see that if I can't, that I can't now without going through this whole guilt. And if I could, he would love me more. But I can't, and being a martyr and all that stuff is
you don't miss that. Huh? Yeah. Well, it's tremendous. It sounds like I love this vision of you two being like newlyweds after 40 years of marriage, raising 8 children. And I want to hear a little bit about how, because you've talked about how it's really impacted your family. So how do you see it, this renewal between you and your husband affecting your kids and your grandkids?
Knowing that we model such, I mean, we're not doing it to model. It's just really who we are now, that they can see, a happiness. And now that I've got 2 daughters who are coaches.
Yes, you do.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and how it's just, it's a lifesaver. It saved their marriages. It's it's amazing. And then so all the rest of everybody else is like on board. Of course, we're always talking skills and everything. And they see it. And my youngest just got married in December. And it's just funny, they're talking about Laura and the skills, and, it's all the new sons-in-laws get indoctrinated into having respectful wives. And they're like, and it, just makes for happy homes, and it, you can use the skills with anybody, I've used the skills with just grandkids and just being able to also just know what I want. I just never, my husband didn't know how to give me what I wanted because I didn't know what I wanted. So, right. It's just, it's you can just see a happy family. I mean, like, everybody's got their struggles and their issues or whatever, but like they're taking responsibility for their side of the street and not just living in blame and resentment like unfortunately I did for so many years. And I'm so glad to be able to give that to them. I'm so glad that I don't have to, post those things. And I mean,
that's right. The WhatsApp, the family WhatsApp has it's a big difference probably from yeah.
It's just it's much happier life.
Yeah. And I just imagine the family gatherings, right? There's a little bit of a different culture because you and your husband have so much peace and so much connection. Like you're fulfilling prophecy. You're so connected. Yeah. So, and what's your tip for someone who feels very much like you did, where he just doesn't get her? She married the wrong person. There's never been love. She's afraid it can't come back because it wasn't ever there. Mm-hmm. And she wants to know how to have what you have, where he is so thoughtful and empathetic and brings you surprises, spelt flower and a beautiful necklace, right? And he does it in such a playful way, right? He just kind of teased you before you even, which just reflects, I think, so much playfulness and safety and fun in your relationship. So if she wants to have what you have, where should she start? What's your best tip for her?
Oh, I got a lot of tips. One is you are 100% responsible for your life and what you create, and understand what respect looks like to a man. You'll always have a choice between intimacy and control. And if you do not realize you're being controlling, you won't ever have the intimacy and love that you want. Just the two can't go together. And it's not about your husband changing and being the way you want him to be so you can be happy. It's about you showing up as the best you that brings out the best in your husband. I was reading a book by Tony Robbins, and he was saying that you have to change 3 things in order to make a breakthrough. You have to change your state, your strategy, and your story. And that's exactly what the 6 intimacy skills accomplish better than anything. And I have spent a life in, trying to improve myself, and nothing has worked like this. But I changed my state with self-care and gratitude. Okay, make myself happy, focus on what makes me happy. I changed my strategy by relinquishing control and restoring respect and receiving graciously. Instead of my old strategy was like, if I can get upset enough, I can get you to understand me. Yeah. I can tell you that strategy doesn't work.
What didn't work for me either. I remember. Yeah.
And I changed my story from blaming my husband for making me unhappy to like focusing on how my husband is my hero and he wants to make me happy. And that we do have a wonderful connection. And that's true. I mean, that's the true story. So I would say run, don't walk, grab onto the skills, practice them. And that's what's so beautiful is that they're a practice. Anything else like as concepts that, you won't be sustainable because if you're in your old habits, your own way of looking at things, your old way of doing things, nothing's going to happen. But if you can practice something, it takes you out of yourself and your self-focus, and you're looking at what you can practice, what wins you can have. And it's so transformational, Laura. I just wish everybody in the world would have it so that they could be happy.
You sound really happy, Rivka, and I give you all the credit for creating that transformation. It does take some focus and some commitment. It's takes some courage. It takes a lot of courage. I think you were very courageous. What do you think you would say to Rivka from before if you could talk to her and tell her what you know now?
Oh, first I would hold her and I would say, really hear that, your pain and your loneliness and your feeling stuck and resentment, that feels like the only way, and that's all that's going to be. But there is such a different way, and I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to show you that there's a way to step out of that painful place. And yes, it takes, like you said, commitment to focusing on what your different things that you're focusing on. Don't focus on the disconnection and the disappointment, but being able to focus on something else that will help you create what you want to create. And it's there for you. And we're waiting for you. That's what I would tell myself.
I love how tender and just self-loving that answer is. I love that you start with holding Rivka, from before, and just giving her that nurturing and safety. Because I think that's a big part of us making these kinds of breakthroughs that you're describing, from feeling so hurt and scared so much of the time to sounding so confident and happy, of course. And but there's like a strength in it too. Right? You sound like the happy wife, matriarch of your family, and what a wonderful role to have. You make it look really, really wonderful. So congratulations to you. Yeah.
And if I want to just say, if I ever forget it, my if I'm in a negative place, I know exactly that's my responsibility and how to get out of it now. Because it's like, things happen. I'm not perfect.
They do. That's right.
If I'm not perfect, I get reminders. I know how to make things better.
And your whole family is kind of a community of empowered wives in a way, right?
Right.
Right. 3 of you that have come through coach training, right, in your family. And so that it's just, I think it just sounds dreamy. It sounds wonderful. So
it's great. It's great to have that support among each other. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And I just, you are just a joy beam of light and hope of what's possible. So I'm just so grateful for the time that we got to spend together in coach training, and getting to meet up with you again and just hear the whole story. It's really a delight. Thank you for inspiring all the listeners about what is possible, Rivka.
Thank you so much.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week Award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice I find most alarming this week was sent to me by a student. She writes that her friend shared that she and her husband have been going to counseling. And in this counseling, she was told to have a blackout month where she and her husband don't do anything with anyone outside of their marriage. And the student writes, I don't know any other relationship where forced time together was helpful. Amen to that, sister. So first, a grateful shout out to you, the student who sent this in for truly terrible relationship advice as a submission. I love that. So thank you for that. And second, I can't believe that anyone ever thought this was good advice, but apparently they did. And it's my job to point at this advice and laugh at it. So that's what I'm doing right now. I don't like it any more than you do, but that's my job. Somebody has to do it. So like I was saying, it takes 2 sisters, 3 best friends, and my husband to put me right when I'm bent out of shape. And if I'm having a blackout month, does that mean that I have to talk to my husband about all the aspects of being a woman that I find endlessly fascinating, even though he really can't relate? Plus, I read a study once that said that men use thousands of words less than women each day. That really resonated for me. So during a blackout, I'm going to have a lot of excess words to say when he reaches his limit and my words are still, I still have a bunch to get out. I'm so grateful for my friends and my extended family to talk to so I don't have a word explosion. One person just can't be my end all be all. That is just too much pressure for one mere mortal man. And the more connected I am with everyone I love besides my husband, the more easily love seems to flow between him and me. So for that reason, this advice to have a blackout month where you don't do anything with anyone outside of your marriage is the very worst relationship advice I've heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share the number 1 question you should never ask your man. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that my favorite kind of therapy, it's retail therapy. Here comes the delivery guy right now.